Now, going on to reviews that get removed. So this is the types of reviews we see most often that Google is willing to actually remove when you report them. So first would be reviews that were left on the wrong place. So a friend of mine who also runs a marketing agency had this negative review left where the person was complaining about prime rib. Like, this is a marketing agency and this guy's leaving him a review about food. Obviously not the right place. Like, they clearly got it wrong. We've seen this for lawyers many times where people will leave reviews that have like absolutely nothing to do with any type of law practice. So if that happens to you, Google is pretty consistent at removing these. It's a pretty obvious case that we can make to them. So that's good news. The second type that we see quite a bit is ex-employees. So this is one where, you fire someone or have to let somebody go and they're mad and they go leave you a negative review, and then they get their mom to leave you a negative review. Usually the best course of action here, honestly, is to reach out to the person since you know who it is. A lot of times you can get further that way than getting Google involved. But if they're unreasonable or not reachable, you can get Google to remove these. The key is that there has to be some public source that states they're an employee, or they have to actually say that they're an employee in the review. So for example, this was a company I was helping who had this happen, and we were able to get Google to remove this review because there was like a actual credible public source that said the guy worked there, like it was a federal source. So that was helpful. Things like LinkedIn and Facebook, they can be easily altered. So Google often will not consider those to be like authoritative places, but like the State Bar, for example, that would be an authoritative place that you could say like, listen, this person worked for me. This is a pattern that we are unfortunately seeing a lot more of recently. So I actually moderate the Google My Business Help Forum. So like we send stuff to Google and help them kind of prioritize things. This is a trend that we started seeing years ago, and it's just kind of picked up where, somebody does something that works for you and it gets posted on social media like TikTok, Twitter, and essentially that person lashes out against the business and says, everybody should go post a negative review for this business because they did this, this, and this to me. So it's quite common these days. The problem is when we're sending these types of things to Google, often volume isn't just enough. Like, I've sent cases to them before where there was like 20 negative reviews in a row, and they're like, there's nothing wrong here, we're not removing these. So it's all about making sure when we send this to Google, or when you're talking to Google, that you send them the correct evidence. So for example, here's an insurance agent that had this happen. So there was an Allstate insurance agent that employed this guy that went to Costco and got very confrontational with this elderly lady, and it got put on video and then put on Twitter and then retweeted like crazy. And all these people started leaving negative reviews for this insurance office, and the agent didn't do anything. And it was one of his employees. Obviously, none of these people are actually insured there, so they're not customers. And it was a really big problem, like tons and tons of reviews pouring in. So obviously this guy was fired. And unfortunately that didn't stop it. Like, the reviews still came flooding in. So the good news is that Google does have a way to solve this now. They can actually put a temporary block on reviews if this ever happens to you. And I wish I could say that it doesn't happen often, but we're starting to see a lot of this. And the sad thing is that people don't forget. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this guy who is a dentist that killed Cecil the Lion back in 2015. So what he did was pretty awful. A lot of people really hate him on social media, but his dental practice still gets negative reviews to this day, like 6 years later, and all related to Cecil the Lion, nothing to do with dentistry. So just, something to keep in mind. Be really careful though what your employees post on social media, because that can, have some bad effects. So when Google puts this temporary block on, this is what it looks like. Essentially, there's usually a leave a review button that shows up on your listing, and they actually can take it off. So that is something that they are able to do if you ever run into this situation where you have something go viral online. Another type of review that is probably pretty common in this space is politically charged reviews. So this is a kind of a win. Google has actually deemed that like reviews related to COVID, for example, or masking, there was a lot of retail chains that got a lot of really bad reviews based on their stance on masks. So whether they allowed them or didn't allow them, people on either side weren't okay with whatever their decision was. So Google actually removed like thousands of these types of reviews from many major retail chains back last year. And if there are reviews that are very politically charged, these do violate Google's guidelines and can be removed. Anything revolving race is also another thing that Google is pretty consistent on. So if the review actually mentions like a specific ethnicity in any type of derogatory way, that is something that they will remove as well.